Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with multi-platinum engineer and owner of Bass Recording Studios, KY Finis, discussing his first break with Lil Wayne, overcoming struggles moving from his hometown of Lexington, Kentucky, and what it really takes to be a successful engineer. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and I'm sitting down with multi-platinum engineer and business owner now, KY Finis.
Yep, exactly.
Straight out of Lexington.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I know it's a little early for you, but
Yeah,
you made
but
your way.
we here.
You made your way.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you're from Kentucky.
Kentucky, of course. Yep,
Lexington. I don't know much about Kentucky.
Yeah, it's a very cool place. Super laid back, clean.
Clean?
Yeah, it's super clean. Got great water. You can actually drink it out the faucet.
Oh, the tap water is good. You can't do that here in Atlanta? Really?
Not really.
I definitely drink tap water.
Yeah.
I'm
But
from
you
here,
know,
though. So
Yeah.
it's been in my body for years at this point.
Bottle water, me.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer a good Essentia, but
Yeah.
Anyway, so being that I don't know much about Kentucky, I did realize through like your journey with music, your career, that you left twice to come to Atlanta, or you
Right.
moved, twice to like pursue your dreams of being in the music industry.
Yeah.
So tell us about your journey here. Why was it important for you to move to Atlanta? What was that for
Well,
you?
I mean, for me, of course, I moved there the first time in 2002. But I thought it was important to get here just because it was just a popping scene. And in Kentucky, we don't have that big of a music scene. So
Gotcha.
I thought that was very important that I come down and get into it because, I mean, if I would have stayed there, I probably would have never even been sitting here with you, honestly.
So, I mean, I guess go back to like childhood for you. What was music to you then?
Music, it was just something that I was just in love with, honestly. Like, I didn't know that I wanted to do it. I just knew that I love music. So even back in the day, of course, I was on cassettes and stuff like that. So I remember just being able to wake up and I would try to catch my favorite songs because, I couldn't buy any of them. My mom wouldn't buy me and stuff like that. So I would just try to catch the radio, catch the songs that I liked, record them. I had my own mixtapes. I had karaoke machines, all type of stuff. I actually played, what's the clarinet? I played the clarinet.
I played the clarinet too. It's nothing
Yeah.
to laugh about. It's a great
Clarinet,
instrument.
I played
Beautiful instrument.
violin too.
Really?
Yeah, and a saxophone in high school.
Oh, wow.
So I've just always kind of been into music, choir and church, same thing. Even though I can't really sing, but
You had to be in the choir. You had to do something.
Yeah,
you had an
exactly.
activity at church.
And I had the
Absolutely.
deep voice. Well, it wasn't that deep then, but it was still deeper than most of the other kids.
Right.
So, I was baritone in the back.
Really?
Never the lead though.
Never to lead. You was like, please don't call me out. to
Please
do this
don't call
song.
me for the lead. Please.
That was me. So talk about, just that journey of getting to Atlanta, because I mean, what made you leave the first time?
The first time I was with a group of friends, and when we was in high school, we were kind of like some of the only people that actually rapped and was selling their stuff. I mean, selling CDs.
So
and
you
tapes
rapped?
I've rapped.
He said, I've rapped.
But I never really actually cared about rapping. I just kind of wanted to do something with music. So with them, that's kind of how I ended up getting into the whole engineering thing because I've always been technical also. But also I used to just do anything that we needed done. So
Right.
it was a 3-man group, and I was just kind of the fourth person. They were my best friends. So if we was at school and we in the lunchroom, I'm beating on the table, I'm making the beat. At shows, I'm the hype man, DJ,
Whatever
manager.
needed to be done.
Yeah, whatever needed to be done, I would just do it. So that was kind of like the thing. And then they actually met up with a independent label here, and they moved them down here. And I say maybe 3-4 months after that, I moved down because they had a studio in the house, and nobody was using the studio. I didn't know that much about engineering at that time, but the guy that owned the company they kept telling them about me, and I was kind of at home, kind of messing around a little bit, and he just told them about me, and eventually he was like, "Cool, come on, move down."
So this
Figure
is
it out.
after high school?
This is after high school, yeah.
So did you have any aspirations of going to school after that for engineering, for music?
Nah, I actually didn't want to go to any other schools, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, like no college, no engineering schools. And I looked into the engineering school. I did look into it, but I'm just looking at it like it costs this much. I have zero.
Right, right.
So
Like, how am I gonna get there?
yeah, how am I going to get there? It's in a whole nother state, which would have been different. And so, I mean, I think that's probably why it kind of balanced out for me because, like I said, I end up moving down and kind of learning on my own self-taught. And, you know, like I said, as we
So,
kind of get more into the story, I can kind of break down when I came back the second time.
how did you learn though? Like, what was? How are you teaching yourself? You know, a lot of people talk about being self-taught when it comes to playing instruments, doing a number of things, but I mean, there was no YouTube necessarily.
Definitely. I was
Like,
about to say that. No
yeah,
YouTube.
like no YouTube. Now it's no
Yeah.
excuse for you not to learn how to
That's
do it
where I go to
yourself.
school now.
Yeah, like now you can learn literally anything on the internet, but back then,
No YouTube.
so what were you doing? You were just like playing around with stuff, trial and
Trial
error?
and error, that's it. And I mean, the most part, like I said, trial and error and just trying to just figure it out. But you had to have that determination to want to figure it out.
Right.
You know, you had to want to figure it out. Like if you didn't want to do it, then it just didn't matter.
That's true. That's true. So, I guess I want to ask you. Okay, so you went. Did you go back home? What was the?
Well, the whole thing with me going back home, I was here for 3 years.
Okay.
And the things just kind of wasn't going that good with the independent company. And of course, you know, we were kind of like not working. So
Yeah.
I didn't have no money, just broke, kind of frustrated with everything. But I knew that I still kind of needed to be down there in Atlanta, but I needed to get my life together first. So as soon as I got back to Kentucky, I knew a guy that he owned a cinema company where they install new all the projectors and all the speakers on the wall and all that stuff in the theaters. And he owned a janitor company, black guy. And I just called him, and basically he gave me a job. So as soon as I got back, I basically hit the ground running, just trying to get my money back up to come here. And so even though I was home maybe about a year and a half before I came back, and I was just working like the whole time. Nobody even really thought I moved back, honestly. Even when they see me sometime on the weekends, because I wouldn't go out every weekend.
Right.
But when they see me, they just be like, "What you got going on? What's going on in Atlanta?" Oh man, it's great down there. It's great.
Staying out of trouble.
Yeah, just staying out of trouble, stay out the way, stuff like that.
So then, you decided to come back to Atlanta?
Once I got my money up, I bought a truck. Me and my mom helped me get a truck, and then I had maybe like $2,000 or $3,000, and I just came back and kind of on a whim. And it's kind of crazy because I had another friend that was actually from Lexington, and he was working with another independent company, and they were kind of doing it big. This is kind of like around the whole BMF era, and they were called Blackout Music. And so they were kind of like a mini BMF kind of at that point. So he was working with them, and they were working at a studio right up the street from here at Patchwerk named Hot Beats. And so I started working there with them. And really, I wasn't working. I was really just sitting there, honestly.
Just observing, being in the
just
room?
observing, just being around. And then I recorded him a few times, and the owner of the studio, he ended up hitting me up one day, and he was like, "Hey, do you work with other people?" I lied and was like, "Yeah," but really, I wasn't working with nobody.
Yeah.
And he actually called me back that night and was like, "I got a session for you." And from there, I mean, it still wasn't the easiest journey, but that kind of started it for me as far as working with other people outside of my friends. Because before then, I was only doing it for the love and with my friends.
So a lot of times, or at least I've done this, and I know a lot of people in the music and entertainment industry do this, where they say like, "Yeah, I know how to do the job," but you really don't know how to do the job.
Right.
I mean, how important is taking that chance on yourself? You know what I mean? Like just not counting yourself out before. Because you could have easily said, "No, I've never done anything." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay, never mind," and go to the next person. But because you took this chance on yourself to say, "Shoot, I believe I can do it, so I'm going to figure it out," that puts you in a position to where you are now.
Well, like I said, I just had to believe in myself, honestly. And I mean, I at least knew enough.
Right.
At that point, I did know enough to at least kind of work with people and not destroy their session. I still didn't know exactly everything, but I knew I could get through the session.
Right.
Like, I just knew I couldn't really mix it, but hey, I've been through enough recording sessions. And now I went from also working on analog gear. This is kind of when Pro Tools start coming in, all that kind of stuff. So I just knew that I could do it, honestly, just more faith in myself. And then I also knew that whatever I didn't know, I would sit there and learn.
Right.
Which I kind of did, because after sessions, the guy, he was actually cool enough. He would I would actually sleep there sometimes, but when I would do that, I would just sit there like I'd be the only person in the studio, and I would just get on Pro Tools and just mess around with stuff and just learn the gear. And that's kind of it. Reading manuals and stuff. Like I said, there was no YouTube, so
You just had to figure it out.
just figure it out. And I didn't even know what half this gear is because coming from Kentucky, we don't have no top-notch studios, none of that stuff. Well, at the point we didn't. So
Now you do.
there's a few there now, yeah. There's
Okay.
a few there now, but not back in the day, no.
So who would you say took a chance on you first? I mean, obviously that situation, I'm not sure who you said, but at Hot Beat Studio. But like who took a chance on you first? Like when you felt like you realized you could make a career out of this?
Well, first I can go ahead and shout out Russ. He's the owner of Hot Beats. So he's the first person as far as a studio owner that actually gave me a shot. As far as artist, I would have to say the person that gave me my big first shot would be Lil Wayne.
Right.
Right, he would probably be the first big shot. But I was working. The first major label album I worked on was with Kia Shine. He had the song So Crispy.
Yeah, I know. We had him on here, actually. It's crazy.
That's my guy right
Yeah.
there, man. Like, I love that dude, man. Like,
good
because
dude.
and he hustled. You know, back in the day, even when I met him, he was just always up on whatever was going on next and just hustling. You know, he's always fly. You know, big tall dude, fly.
Yeah.
You know, so
He was in Superfly.
yeah, I love
That's
him. So, so he's super cool. But that's the first major label album I worked on.
Okay.
So I'd say as far as major label stuff, that's the first thing was working with him.
So let me ask you, I guess, like, how did you realize you could truly make a career from music as an engineer? Like, I mean, originally you got into the business, you didn't really know exactly, I guess, what it is you could do, and you stumbled upon engineering. But how did you realize, you know, especially through your struggles of even getting here
Right.
and being able to stay here, at what point, what was it for you that was like, okay, I can make a career out of this, I can make money and live from
Well,
this?
first off, one of my friends that I came down with the first time, his name's Mark, and he used to teach me like a lot of stuff. He tore down the whole studio one day, stuff like that. Just like, if y'all want to work, then you're gonna have to learn learn this stuff. So he would unplug everything, and I had to figure out how to plug it back up.
Right.
So he was one, and then number two was I seen Leslie Brathwaite, which he was working here at Patchwerk at the time. And I came in and he had a key ring, and his key ring had a Range Rover, a Lambo, and a Bentley. So when I seen that, I was like, yeah, engineering.
There's money in this.
Yeah, let me take this a little bit more serious. I was already taking it serious, but hey,
Yeah, Leslie.
yeah,
he's
when
the goat.
when I seen that, I was like, okay, that's it right there for
That's
me.
fine. That's fine. So let me ask you, why music? Why music for you? I know we talked about your upbringing and just learning instruments and, you know, just your love for music, but why music ultimately? Like, you could have done a number of other things.
Well, that's probably the number one thing I love. So I felt like that was the easiest route because it was something that I was already doing, even if I wasn't getting paid. So
That's true.
I was just looking at it like that, like more so. And then I never liked jobs. Like every job I've ever had, I got fired from. Like
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot in this business.
Yeah, I
you wanted
did.
to work
Like,
for yourself.
yeah, I just wanted to work for myself, and even this, like getting into it, like I still had bosses and stuff like that, and so I still had to listen to somebody, but it was actually something that I wanted to do. So it's not like I'm taking orders at somewhere I didn't want to be anyway.
Right.
I didn't, and then I'm not a morning person, and y'all got me coming in at 8, and it's like,
I'm just
like,
not even up until 12.
yeah, I'm not up. Like, and then I had to come in here and I had to deal with y'all. Like, this is crazy. And I'm making money for y'all. I'm not improving my life any type of way. So, and improving nobody else's life. I'm just doing whatever you want me to do. So,
Right. So what is it like? Is it important for the engineer to have an ear for music, to have an actual, something that you were blessed with, not necessarily something you could learn?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like even for me, like I said, I'm not necessarily the most technical per se. I mean, over time, I've learned a lot of the technical stuff just from, like I said, trial and error and just doing things. But I definitely wasn't the most technical person. So definitely a lot of it came from just me having a feeling for music, which I think a lot of us kind of do, especially if you grew up listening to music. I mean, I don't know what person doesn't like music, like
Right.
honestly. And not to say that everybody can do music, but you do have to, if you study it a lot, like I just listen to music, and I'm the type of person that's going to listen to everything. Even from back in the day, I'm listening to hi-hats, I'm listening to the snare, I'm listening to all this different stuff. And why is this voice going to the left? Why is this voice going to the right? And at that time, I didn't know that's called panning or why they did it. I didn't understand any of it, but just studying what's going on and stuff like that. So, yeah, you definitely had to kind of have it. And, like I said, you definitely got to have it, though.
Yeah, I saw a video that you did in like a pretty much like a workshop essentially where you were showing people, what it takes to engineer, answering questions. And one of the things that someone said about you, I don't remember who it was, a producer, I believe, said about you,
C-Note.
C-Note, said that, you know, we're pretty much like you have a long catalog of music that you listen to. And I wanted to ask, like, the importance, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just let them know the importance of listening and studying music as an engineer. Like, what does that do for the engineer when you're working with a number of, like, current artists? Because, music has changed, and we'll talk about the evolution, like, things you've seen in your career.
Right.
But still, like, why does that apply, like, studying music?
Well, because even though music is changing, it's going to continue to always change. Because even if like I said, I have a big catalog of music that I listen to from probably the 60s all the way up to now, and that's any genre just about. So,
Okay.
Mostly soul, R&B, of course, disco,
Right.
all that type of stuff.
Right.
But, I forgot the question, my bad.
Just like the importance and significance of you studying as an engineer.
Music. But like I said, like when you go back and listen to a lot of that stuff still applies to this day, even though it's a different sound per se. So you can still, even though somebody's doing something new, you can kind of go back and listen to a lot of the stuff and be like, okay, I can implement some of this stuff to what's going on now. And even though that really the main difference now is a lot of people don't play a lot of live stuff. But a lot of this stuff, a lot of these VSTs and stuff, they actually sound very
Live,
real,
yeah.
honestly. But I still try to tell even a lot of guys, like, hey, if you got a guitar riff in your song or something, hey, let's go actually get a guitar player and come in and play that riff, stuff like that. And, I know a few guys, I keep them online and just hit them up and just kind of try to add some of that live stuff into it. And so I think that's why it's good to study music, just because you can kind of understand and implement some of that stuff. And then also, too, a lot of that stuff worked at one point in time. So if it worked once, guess what it's going to do again?
It's going to work again.
And everything comes back around.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. It's a cycle. So the mix makes the master. You quoted that on your website. You've talked about that in videos and things like that before. But what's the importance of a proper mix before the master? Obviously, mixing and mastering are both important,
Right.
but, as an engineer, that's your job. Like, aside from, if you're a recording engineer, you're just, like, tracking the session, then that's different. But for the most part, most engineers want to mix or
Right.
learn to mix, So what is that? Because a lot of times, especially in this, like, DIY era where everybody feels they can do it themselves,
Right.
the mentality, do you feel like that good engineering or great engineering has gone to the backseat while people feel like they can do it themselves?
To a certain extent, it has, but I think that it's actually it's kind of good. But I think some people that actually do it on their own, I think that they're just probably doing what I was doing back then. They just got better gear now.
True.
So they don't really understand what they're doing, and they're trial and error. Honestly, like, I just feel like that's kind of probably where they're at. But, having a good engineer is, it's priceless, honestly, because I've saved a lot of songs. And I've also seen people or heard songs where they've also been destroyed just by the mix, honestly. Or it just doesn't bring the song out. Like, you hear that something's there and it got that feeling, but that person doesn't bring it out. So, as I think having a great engineer, you definitely have to get somebody that brings your music out, brings it to life, has great ideas, because also at the same time, we're not actually producing the record, but we're producing the overall record.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not making the beat per se, but sometimes we are in certain ways, because I definitely take kick snares and move them around. I do a whole bunch of different stuff, just bringing it in. Or you, like I said, you got this thing I've made songs before, like literally where a rapper just raps down the track 2 or 3 times and I just kind of put it together and make a song.
Right.
So, you kind of have to do that
technically, you
type
are
of
the
stuff.
producer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I said, that's the job of the engineer. And that even goes from the recording, and it's a step-by-step process, because I started off doing a whole bunch of recording sessions. Too many now to where, like I said, I don't want to do it. I don't really even have the passion to really record. I can do it, but I don't have the passion to really sit there, because I've been through a whole bunch of days and nights and months of just recording and recording and recording. And then I actually do get a lot more out of mixing than I do recording, but I love both of them in their own way.
Mm-hmm. What do you love about both?
Well, recording, I just love because, you're in the trenches with them. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of get the feeling of the song because you were there. You know that, kind of even funny stuff that kind of goes on in the midst of making the song. Like somebody might have been passed out and sleep, and then they just woke up and went in the booth and spit a crazy verse or something. You know what I mean? And it's just like that's kind of a story of kind of putting everything together. Or a lot of artists also too. They might be like, hey, move this here, move that there, and just different stuff that kind of goes on in the recording process. And recording's also kind of like a party also at the same time.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
they coming in and they doing whatever they doing and trying to enjoy themselves. Now the mixing, I like that now because I'm my only child and I like kind of stay to myself. So a lot of time when I'm mixing, I'm by myself.
Right.
So I kind of like that, and then I can kind of do it at my own pace as long as
Exactly.
I get it done. Like if they say, hey, we need it in the morning, it don't matter when I start it. I just need to make sure I get it to you by the morning.
By the morning.
Yeah.
So do the artists typically, or do some artists typically want to be in there while you're mixing?
Yeah, I don't really do it though.
You're like, that, not with me.
Yeah, and then my example when they normally want to do that, I just always tell them, hey, look at you hear all these songs and why you came to me, none of those guys were here with me, and I don't have a problem with you coming after I do it. I just really kind of want to get that initial one off my chest,
Right.
and then you can come in and sit with me and we can make as many changes as you want to,
Right.
because I do understand sometimes, especially like if they're here in the city, it's kind of hard to just kind of keep on going back and forth. Now, if they out of town, which most artists that I work with, they kind of in and out of town, so they don't have time to just be sitting there with me. And then only people that really want to do that, honestly, are newer artists, because it's like everything's kind of so new to them, so they want to be such a part of
Every
all
process.
the process. But then once they come to a mix session one time and they realize, I can't talk, okay, he's doing this, and then I kind of get into a little thing. I'll take a break. I'm not just sitting there banging my head out for 8-9 hours on the phone. Like I might play PlayStation. I'm on YouTube. I walk around. I talk. I scroll IG.
Yeah, because hearing that over and over, I'm sure is like...
Exactly, because you listen to the same song, like literally, over and over and over and over and over until it's done. And then honestly, it's never done because I'm a perfectionist. So there's songs out to this day where I still feel like they're not done and they #1 songs. So it's crazy. Yeah.
So I'm sure, or how has sound changed from your start till now? Like, just from 2002,
Right.
you know what I mean, to 2018, a lot has changed in terms of like sonics. So even what you might hear on the radio today from what you heard before, like which is supposed to be like a good mix or a good master,
Right.
completely different. How has it changed?
Yeah, and a lot of that's changed just because you went from analog, and a lot of people are digital now. So there's a lot of people mixing in the box, and a lot of people not even really using the boards and stuff like that a lot. It's still some people that do. But I think that, honestly, a lot of it just sounds more clear. But I think a lot of it also, especially with hip-hop, is getting back to like more of a grimy thing, that's something that I kind of always try to do anyway. Is kind of still bring a little bit of griminess to it, like depending on that song. Because some songs are meant to sound super crispy and poppy, and then some songs are meant to be, like when I'm doing Waka stuff, I don't want that stuff to sound clear. I want it to sound ghetto and hood and like a mixtape. And that's kind of like, it's actually a science in itself to actually make something sound not that good. So that's kind of like a thing too. And I think a lot of people are doing that because even with the 808s and stuff like that, a lot of that stuff is distorted, stuff like that. But it's like it goes with what's going on,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never really heard that perspective. So is it... Okay, when you say grimy though, like, can you still manage to make a grimy, like, this trap sound, but it still sound good? Like, that's to me, I feel like, yeah, you can make it sound like not poppy, but, is there a science to actually making it still sound like it was mixed? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, like I said, that's the science behind it. And I like to call it a ghetto mix. That's kind of how I call it, because it's still sonically kind of right in its own way. And you can hear everything they're saying, the vocals and stuff are crispy, but sometimes you just kind of add a little bit of grit to it, and sometimes I might do that with the plug-in. Like I might, on the 808 or something, I might add a lo-fi or something like that to where it kind of makes it a little grimy.
I'm nodding my head, but I don't know none of that. And it's crazy because, like, anytime that's why I had to ask Vern, like, before we started, and James, Like any questions you guys have, because I always talk to engineers, producers, everything, but I don't do none of this. And so it's like I sit in the studio and, I manage an artist and I deal with this all the time. But at the same time, when you get to the technicalities, I know somebody listening knows what that means.
Yeah,
though, so
definitely.
We good.
My engineer guys, they got me. Vern got me too.
Yeah, they got you. They look, he's nodding his head, so I think we're on the right path. So how have you adjusted to like the new wave of sound? I mean, obviously from, like I saw on your credits, you work with like Made in Tokyo, you've worked with, I mean, the list goes on and on, T Grizzly, whoever, but these are like the newer guys. So is there any adjustments you've made in terms of like, did you switch to digital, or are you still on the board?
Actually, I probably was one of the first guys to go in the box.
Gotcha.
Like when I did it, it was very, very, very frowned upon. Really? Yeah, people were like, it's not a real mix. Even though I had the track out, I got everything. But to me, I just found it easier, especially when people want changes. Right. And then also, too, the way people are. Say if I send you a mix today, some people might not say nothing back to me for 3 days. So if I got that on the board, I'm not about to leave my board on your song for 3 days. True. And then I got to bring it back up. And when you bring it back up, it still kind of never sounds the same, because you got to remember every single thing. And then even equipment, a lot of the outboard gear, you got to have it on for a certain amount of time, let it warm up. And it might, I don't know, it's just the things could be different that day and you could have it set exactly the same and it's still just not going to sound exactly the way you had it. And then they're going to be like, hey, this. And, it's easy for changes. Because now even like I'm on my laptop, I can literally, if somebody asks me for a change, I could be driving. If I got my laptop in the back, I can literally pull over at the gas station, knock it out real quick, send it right back to you. And I did that from the car. Wow. And that's how fast I can give you your changes, more so than
trying to pull
it all the way back up on the board. But I didn't do that, honestly, for that reason. I really did that because, I was working with what I was working with. Right. And I've started noticing that my rough mixes were starting to get radio play. And when that started happening, I was like, I think I'm probably ready for mixing, honestly. And that's kind of how it came about. So that was probably more so my main reason, more so than the other way. And then now, but it's crazy now because a lot of the people that frowned upon me doing it, they're in the box now.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it happens. Yeah. That's how it happens. You transition into like what's, because you have to make changes. You got to adjust as the time goes with any business, any industry,
Exactly.
So let me ask you, in terms of like why people come to you for a mix and not anybody else, because there are lots of engineers, there are a lot of people you can work with. What is it about you that they're like, I need a KY mix?
Well, one, I do good business. So that's number one. I feel like you have to do good business. Like,
and what does it mean to do good business?
First off, don't run over nobody money, and do what you say you're gonna do. Like, if you tell them if it's Monday and they give you the song and they say they want it tomorrow, if you can't do it tomorrow and get it back to them, tell them. Right. And sometimes they'll wait for you. Honestly, they'll wait because they want you to do it, and because that's why they're coming to you. And then sometimes they can't and they'll move on. But just do what you say you're gonna do. Don't take people's money and run off. Treat every artist the same. That's kind of what I mean by good business. Like, even though you could be a major label artist or you could be the brand new guy off the block trying to make it, and I'm gonna treat you the same as I treat 2 Chainz. It's the same thing. So I think that's probably number one. Number two, of course, I just got a long resume when we being around for a while. So a lot of guys are buying that, and then
well, let's say this is when you just getting started, right? And like people still came to you or felt comfortable, like, trusting you with their record. Why?
Well, a lot of times I just already had a relationship with that artist, which is what I tell a lot of engineers. Like, it's so much work out here. Nobody has to fight over work. Especially in Atlanta. Exactly. It's millions of rappers. It's millions of R&B artists. It's pop artists. It's millions of studios. Like, it's crazy. So it's like no point of fighting over anything. But honestly, you just build your relationship with that artist. Now, for me, I just got lucky, and a lot of the artists that I built those relationships with actually blew up. And then they were actually, once they blew up, they still came to me for everything. Right. So I think that's kind of the main thing. Like, I think as an engineer, you just got to build it with the artist. Like, if you come in with an artist, that's kind of your best way, more so than just being like, hey, I mix. Like, because nobody's going to care, especially if the songs that you did haven't actually, like, hit Billboard, right? And, major label stuff. You might just be working with your friends. But at the end of the day, is if your friends end up blowing up, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna always come to you for your mixes, for the
Exactly.
mixes. So they're not gonna go nowhere else because they already trust you.
Right.
So
You, well, let's talk about, like, I guess more so how you have to be as a person, like your character. Because, like, a lot of times when I'm in a session, the engineer is not saying a whole lot. And when they do speak, it's like, it's important. Like, you
Right.
know, hey, maybe you should just do that again.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or whatever. So being private, working with artists, a lot of times, I mean, you worked with Major, 2 Chainz, Lil Wayne,
Right.
these people, Drake, to whoever. These people are not like, they don't want their business out there. So it's almost like you're a wallflower.
Right.
You're just, you there, you
Just
do your
there,
job. So tell me about, like, what sort of characteristics you need to have in order to be, like, a successful engineer.
Right. I mean, for me, that's kind of everything kind of goes naturally. And like I said, I had to learn the studio etiquette, engineer etiquette over time. But you're definitely a fly on the wall. Just speak kind of, you know, you're not a part of the party. Like I said, especially in a recording session where everything else is kind of going on. They might bought alcohol in. That don't mean you drink alcohol.
Right.
You know, not unless you just got that relationship with that artist, and it's one of those days where it's just kind of like, oh, you know, we're at the end of something, and you know, we kind of celebrating kind of thing. But nah, don't be a part of the party. Even though you hear stuff, you don't hear stuff.
Right.
You know,
right.
like-
That's more so exactly what I was saying. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, a lot of things happen. A lot of things are said.
Yeah.
Business is being done.
Mhm.
Some trash
And-
things are being done. You done said.
And
So
people are
it's like,
talking about people, and you know, honestly, like I know so much stuff. Like you could actually start stuff because you don't know what's going on outside of when they leave here. You know,
Right.
like you be working with an artist, and then he says something about an artist, and guess what? You're working with that artist that guy was talking about 2 days ago, and then you go say something. Now these dudes got problems, and it's just a whole bunch of stuff. So just stay out of it. Yeah, just stay out of
Stay
it.
out
Like I
the
said,
way.
you're here, but you're not here. You're here to do your job, and that's it. And I don't even really talk too much to my friends about like stuff that goes on and stuff that's said and stuff like that. Because like I said, you just
don't know.
yeah, stay a vault.
I agree, and I'm happy you said that. So, talk about like creating like the vibe or the setting for the artist.
Right.
So, you know, for example, here at Patchwerk, like most of the engineers kind of they work consistently with the client.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever that artist might be, they want to work with Vern, or they might want to work with somebody because they create this like vibe for them.
Right.
What would you recommend for, like, say for instance, you're working with the artist for the first time or a client for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend? This is, I guess, more so for someone who's not necessarily mixing the record, but like tracking alongside.
Well, first off, make sure the studio's clean. That's number one. I'll let you make the mess once you get in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want you to walk into the mess. So I think that's number one as far as setting the vibe. Number two, have everything ready, because the first thing they're gonna want to do, and most times when they come in, let me see the aux cord. That's like the first thing they want to do. So make sure that everything's up, ready to run. Like you're not testing the mic. You've already done that. That's already up. You got everything going. So basically, as soon as they walk in, they can go ahead and really just get to work as soon as they walk in. That's one part. And then me, I like candles. So, you know, I think that's like a cool vibe.
Cool vibe, yeah.
Some artists like the lights low, some don't. You know, just whatever, you know, you learn over time what they kind of like as far as setting the vibe. But more so I think just having a clean space. You know, y'all got the great cookies here, so have some cookies on deck.
So you talked about building the relationship with the artist or the producer, whoever it is that you're working with. And I know in the video that you have on your website, 2 Chainz was talking about how he pretty much doesn't want to know, like, he doesn't want to have to tell you what to do or make suggestions for stuff. He wants you to kind of do that as the engineer. Like, he doesn't want to have to say, like, the technical stuff that you were talking about, lo-fi and all that stuff. Like, you know, a lot of artists, I'm sure they learn that over time, but they don't want to have to deal with that. They just want to come in, you know, if it's auto-tune here, then sure, like, you know. So what would you suggest in terms of, like, building that relationship with artists, especially being that you've built relationships with, like, really big artists?
Well, like I said, that's the main thing, is actually building that rapport with them to where you kind of basically, you have to be their second brain. And like I said, they don't understand exactly what's going on our side anyway.
Right.
So you kind of just have to just I don't know, just get it. And
Is
then
there
even
a
when they're
level
in
of,
the
like,
booth,
transparency for that, though? Like, you know, even though they don't necessarily know what you're doing on your side,
Right.
do you kind of explain it, or is there any, like, knowledge happening there?
honestly,
sharing
if they
knowledge?
ask, but other than that, I just kind of
Do your job.
just do it, yeah. And then a lot of times, like I said, just doing it without them asking. Like that's kind of what they like. And then once they get used to somebody like that, when they go work with somebody else and they have to explain it, like, that's why a lot of artists also bring their engineers on the road now.
True.
Because they don't have to explain that. And when they go to another studio, they got to explain, okay, this is how I like to record, because every artist is going to have their way of doing what they want to do. Like I said, some rap all the way down the beat and want you to take pieces and place them here and place them there, because a lot of guys aren't writing either. You know, so they just kind of going in the booth freestyling and doing what they do. So they want you to kind of do it. Yeah, and it's hard to do that if you're working with somebody that's like, this is their first time, because I think even in a recording session, I think it might take you at least 10, 15 sessions before you really get that vibe with them. Maybe less, depending on how many hours y'all work. But I just think it takes time, and I think they appreciate it. Like, even when they saying stuff like, sometimes, you know, a lot of rappers got slang, or they're saying run it back, which could mean a million different things, honestly. Because run it back can mean, oh, are you keeping what you just did?
Right.
Do you want me to take it to the top? I don't know what you're trying to really get me to do.
Yeah.
But it's like, you got to already just kind of understand it. If you got the rapport with them, I know what your run it back means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk about what everybody wants to know. Working with Wayne, how did that even come about? And, you know, how was that experience early on?
Well, it's actually a funny story. But, of course, when you're working at Hot Beats up the street, Wayne was actually working here at Patchwerk.
Yeah,
So,
I kind of got the scoop before, so I know the answer. Right?
So basically, you know, you can't smoke in here.
Right.
He likes to smoke, and he likes to actually be at the board when he's writing, because, you know, he's not actually technically writing it down, but he likes to just kind of stare at the board or just walk around and pace in the actual studio. So I guess he just decided one day, because he had been working here, so he knew, but I don't know, he just decided to blaze up one day. Yeah, and he just did it, and he got kicked out. So I was working with 2 Chainz, which he was Titty Boy at the time, and he was already working at Hot Beats. And of course, him and Wayne, good friends, they already did Duffel Bag. And Wayne just called him and was like, hey, I need a studio. So, you know, he ended up coming to Hot Beats that night. And I actually didn't work with him that night. Okay. But because he actually had another engineer with him already, because like I said, he was one of the first artists that I seen traveling with their engineer. And he was traveling, and then he ended up coming up there. And I'd already worked with, like, other artists on Young Money. Like, I worked with some of the Squad Up guys, Mac Main, which is his right-hand man. I'd already worked with them before I met Wayne. Oh, okay. So when I think that kind of helped.
Yeah, with the trust, yeah.
And I was acting like I was an intern. So that was my way of kind of like being in the studio. Even though I was already working, if Wayne needed something, I would literally just go get it, because I wanted to sit in the session. And then he already seen that I was cool with his homies. Right. So that's kind of how it started. And over time, his engineer missed a few flights when he would be here, and I would have to work with him for 2 days, 3 days. And the next thing you know, I got a call one day, and it was him on the phone, and he was like, hey, you want to come to Miami? And it was supposed to be for 3 days. And I'm like, all right, cool. I had never even been to Miami at that time. So I went down there, and I actually just never came back for like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 years?
Yeah. And the only reason I came back is because when he had to kind of go for a little small vacation, and when he went for his vacation, then that's kind of like, I didn't like actually living in Miami day to day. I actually like living in Atlanta. So I couldn't wait to get back to Atlanta anyway. So I came back, and that's kind of,
How was it? I mean, like, just what was the process of working with him? At that point, I mean, you've been working with him pretty much every day, so coming up with, like, no ceilings, I mean, that's what I want to know about. I'm like, what was that like when you first heard it?
Well, it just started because, Wayne, for once, he works every single day. Yeah. Every single day. So, I mean, that might have been part of why I didn't like living in Miami, because it's like this beautiful place, but it's like I'm inside all day. Period, yeah. Yeah. So that was probably part of it.
That's what I was about to say. I'm like, how do you not like Miami?
I just like visiting. But maybe, like I said, we worked at night. You had a different experience. Yeah, I had a different experience with it. And then living on South Beach, I think if I probably wasn't living like on South Beach, maybe on the other side of the bridge or something, that might have been a little different. But he works every single day. And with the no ceilings thing, a lot of times he's just kind of working, and sometimes he's working on an album, sometimes I'm working on this. And he just kind of caught this thing where he was like, I want to rap on other people's beats. I want a mixtape. So I just, that was the process. And then, I just started downloading the new hot songs, downloading their beats and stuff like that. Shouts out to Eyes with his North Carolina shirt on. But no, so I downloaded some beats for him and stuff like that. And we was actually on tour. So we was in Cincinnati when he did the first song.
Oh, wow.
And,
So you traveled with him on tour and everything?
Yeah, tour and everything. Like, I've been on probably 7 or 8 tours.
Wow.
Probably like 6 of them with him, and then I went on a tour with Tyga, and I've been on like 1 or 2 with Chainz.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dope. How was the experience, or like, being able to go on tour as the engineer? Are you just like ready at any time?
Oh man, it's super cool because you just kind of get to go everywhere. Like, that's how I got to see the world, honestly. Like, engineering is actually like let me see the world without me paying a dime.
That's dope.
Like, I've been to Europe, I've been to Australia, Africa.
Wow.
Like, all these different places, Norway.
That's dope.
Just all of America, Canada. Just from engineering, because when you go on tour, that's like super cool. Like I said, I wouldn't do it now just because I've been there, but at first it's fun because it's like you get, you're on the bus, you got the rag, you got your rack or whatever, and you could pull up stuff. You can't really record while you're riding though, because so much road noise on the mic.
Right.
So but you can still edit and do stuff like that. But it's just fun, man. Like, it is. It's
just
fun.
An experience.
Yeah, super experience. Like, I would never take it back. Like I said, I that's when I've done most of my traveling. Like I said, without me paying a dime. Like,
that's amazing.
And actually getting paid.
That's amazing. That's a blessing. So talk about the hours you got to put in to work, because you said, hard work pays off. Mm-hmm. Going from literally living in your truck, which we didn't really touch on, but we know the story. The story is out there. It's on your actual website. You struggled to get to your passion.
Definitely.
Or to allow your passion to work for you.
Definitely.
So just tell me, what type of hours, what type of dedication you got to do to put in as an engineer, because I've seen it, working at the studio myself. These guys, they're in here 24 hours. So, talk about that.
Just be prepared to not have a girlfriend, honestly, or one that's very trusting and understanding. But it's definitely a lot of hours, and like I said, depending on what you're working on, you could be working with one artist for 12 hours a day, sometimes longer. Like, depending on, you might be doing 2 or 3 sessions a day to equal up to 12 hours, and you might do that for 2 or 3 months sometimes, like before you get a day off, honestly.
Right. Right.
So you just kind of you definitely gotta stay down, and it's a lot of hours. And I mean, like I said, for me, I appreciated it because, for one, I actually like doing it. So I didn't really feel like work, honestly.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa, I'm getting paid to do something I love, and other people are like, it's actually fun to see other people enjoying something, like, which was kind of a cool thing going on tour, because you get to see thousands and thousands of people work, and happy and enjoying themselves off of something that you helped create.
That's dope.
Which is a good feeling for me, even though I'm walking right by them and they don't know me per se.
Right.
But I've actually, like, I'm helping them enjoy their life,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it kind of balances itself out, you know what I mean? But it's definitely a lot of work, and, a lot of sacrifice too. And a lot of people don't got it, honestly, they don't. Like, they think that they want to do this, they don't be really wanting to do it.
Then they gotta get into it and like,
a lot of people DM me and hit me up, I want to engineer. Well, look, first off, you need to already be engineering for you to even say that. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And then, number two, you got to want to do it. Nobody could push you to want to do it. Like, you had to want to do it. Even with my engineers in my studio now, like, I tell them, and I watch them too. I might not say too much at first. I kind of watch them, and then I give them some advice like, yo, you need to, tighten up, and stuff like that. And sometimes, like I said, it's just kind of one of them things where it's like, not unless you got some kids or something like that, or, family emergency, but it's like, sometimes a lot of that stuff has to go to the back burner sometimes in order for you to try to really get to where you're trying to get to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you have any regrets from, like, not being able to, I'm assuming you're not married. Are you married?
No.
Do you have a girlfriend?
A little bit.
A little bit? So kind of. Yeah. Okay, well, at this point, you can kind of control what you're doing with your career, so that is different. But, like, do you have any regrets from, trying to, like, balance having, like, family? Because I know engineers who have families and relationships, but most of them are older, and they've been in the business for a minute, so they've had...
Takes time.
It takes time, but, like, in your youth, your prime, while you're, like, really grinding, is it impossible?
No, it's not impossible. That's why I was saying, like, either you had that girlfriend before, or you maybe met her and she just understands what you're doing, and understanding that you're doing it for the greater. And, like I said, you can actually make a lot of money doing it. So it's like, why wouldn't you want to be with me, Like, and at least I'm being able to do what I want to do. And then over time, like I said, finally you get to control your own schedule.
Right.
So once you kind of get to do that, that's kind of like cool. And, you know, you can take your days off. You can go on your family trips and all that stuff because you already put in all that work early.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really regret it, honestly. I mean, the main thing, I mean, maybe I probably regret, like, I mean, I definitely love family and, you know, I want to have a family unit and all that stuff. But I just think that, you know, everybody got their own path. But with this, it is hard to have, especially if you got kids.
Right.
It's hard. Like,
right.
It's hard. Like, especially with the kids. Now, it kind of almost balances out, especially if you're really about your business. You're going to be tired, though, because you might work all night and then, hey, say your kid, he's already going to school. But guess what? When you get home, you can actually take them to school because you're up.
Right.
You know, and you can go ahead and let mom go ahead and go to work, and now you're with the kid, and you drop them off and go home and go to sleep.
Yeah.
You wake back up, go pick them up from school. So
that's true.
You actually kind of got, you know, depending on what you're doing. Like for me, I like working at night. So, you know, everybody's normally sleeping at night anyway. So it's like I kind of got my whole day to do whatever I want to do.
That's true.
So you kind of free in that way.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Very, very true. So talk about the competitive nature of music. Like it seems like music, even though you said there's a lot of work in Atlanta,
right.
It's still very competitive to, you know, obviously as an artist to get on, if you're an independent artist and you're just starting out, to get your music heard.
Yeah.
And then of course, even as an engineer, like it might be 1,000 people at one studio trying to get, you know, a session. It could be. Is it competitive? Had you found that to be a problem when you were like coming up?
Yeah, I mean, even though like I said, it's a lot of work, I'm still a competitive person. So I still want to be the best. And even if, you know, I'm a pretty humble dude, you know, I don't walk around and just be like, I'm the best. But yeah, in my mind, I'm like, I'm the best, you know, and I'm going to say that all the time. Like, you know, because you should just always feel like that anyway, like
absolutely.
Regardless of what you're doing. And I also look at music like sports, you know, and it's
definitely.
that's why I love sports because it's a competitive thing, you know, like, and I look at engineering the same exact way, and it should be competitive. Like I said, it's the music game. So at the end of the day, I mean, not saying that all the best music always rises to the top because it's a lot of other factors that go into more than just your music being dope. Because I know a lot of dope artists, but they might not got other things, you know,
right.
Even now, even then, but I mean, more so now too, a lot of it goes with your personality too.
Yeah.
It's like you're selling more than the music.
Definitely.
So, you know, you got to be competitive in all type of different ways and how you get your music out there and stuff like that. And like I said, I mean, there's so many people trying to do it. Yeah, everybody's moving down here, but everybody's not going to make it.
Exactly.
And, you know, I've worked with a lot of artists and a lot of them didn't make it, you know,
That's
and they
true.
spent a lot of money on their craft and was serious about it and it just didn't pan out, you know?
I agree. So talk about being a business owner. We were kind of briefly touched on you owning bass recording studios and, you know, you overseeing the engineers and like, you know, just the business itself.
Right.
Making that transition, what was that, 2 years ago?
Three
years
now.
ago?
Yeah.
How was that for you? What experiences, what challenges have you had so far just owning a business?
Yeah, it was super cool, actually. I actually just love being able to put people in place because I felt like for a long time it was just all about me, you know, what I can do. And I try to help however I could, like I said, during the seminars, the KY experience,
right.
Stuff like that. But I couldn't really like actually put people in place, you know, other than saying, hey, you know.
This is what you should do.
Yeah, this is what you should do, just giving some advice, stuff like that. But I couldn't actually get you work and stuff like that, you know. But I love it, man. Like I said, I got a great team of people over at the studio. They help me out a lot, and like I said, just being able to watch them fulfill their dreams because something simple that means the most to them right now, and it maybe did to me then. I just kind of look at it like I've been there 1,000 times, you know. So I actually get more excited watching them, and you know, watching other people kind of reach their success and their goals than honestly me because I just kind of feel like I've kind of done it all in certain aspects. I mean, I haven't done it all, but
right. But
I feel like it.
You've been around the world in that area.
Exactly. Like to them, even just seeing their name in the credits or something like that's like amazing to them, you know. And I'm just like, that's like every Tuesday, Friday now. But
look, you like I've been doing this.
Yeah, it's like
I feel you.
It just doesn't touch me as much. Like I'm still excited, but I'm just not as excited as
as the first time.
Yeah, like I used to rush out and go buy the CD so that I could see my name in it, so I could post it on Instagram with, you know, post the inside cover so you can see my name and stuff like that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's dope. That's dope that you can give back to, you know, up and coming engineers and like really be able to pour into them in a different way. Happy for the success of the studio so
Thank
far.
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a hard business, you know, and like Patchwerk, it's 20 years now? 25?
23.
23?
I was going to say 24, but
so,
23 years.
I mean, hey, I'm only 3 in, so they got 20 on me, and this is a classic studio, period. Like, I've mixed a lot of stuff here. Like I said, I've worked with Vern, and I've been here in both rooms, and they actually got another room now. 2 more rooms, I think.
Yeah, it's 3 rooms total now,
Okay.
but that's cool. That's like exciting to know that you have entered a business in which you worked for and worked in. I'm sure they're like, do you feel like it's ever overwhelming to have to run a business at this point, or you feel like you have that time to do that?
Well, I had the time to do it because I'm focused on doing it.
Sure.
But at the same time, it is sometimes overwhelming. But like I said, I got a good team of people, and they take kind of stresses off of me. So they know that, hey, I'm working late at night. So if his session's coming in at noon, it's hard for me to come in at noon. But it's like I got guys that I know can come in and open up. And
it's a lot of trust and delegation there. Did you have any struggles when you initially started the business?
No, not really, because honestly, everybody that I work with, I kind of knew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like I kind of knew them, and I met a few other guys over time once I was there, but a lot of the guys I kind of knew, like, just for me being an engineer and people talking to me and me being in different studios and build relationships, a lot of guys I just kind of knew. It was like, they see that I was opening up the studio, and even if I wasn't necessarily thinking about them, they hit me up like, yo, you open the studio?
Yeah.
I want to come in, I want to, you know what I mean? Like, and then people that have been hitting me for years, like, trying to do stuff now, it's like, hey, I got an opportunity now, so stuff like that. So a lot of people, I kind of already knew them mostly.
That's true.
Yeah.
So KY run me back 2 times.
Yeah, 2 times.
Tell me
Shouts
about
out
that.
to Tokyo. Shouts out to Made in Tokyo.
So that was on what song?
That was on Skateboard P.
Skateboard P.
Yeah, when he said that, yeah.
So that just like become like a little line. You could just, that's kind of dope.
Yeah, because people would see me and, they just, KY run me back, KY run me back. And after a while, I kind of got annoying, but it was just like, cool. And then, the whole thing really started with the Waka tag, was the KY Engineerin, and then he kind of just did it his own way. So he basically made a whole nother tag, now where people, I don't even know which one, because I never actually put the tag on people's songs until they asked me.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it comes about. And that's how it came about. Well, let me explain the story of the tag, actually.
Yes, please.
Well, the KY Engineerin Tag, of course, Waka said it. And I actually took the tag from a song called Bussin' At 'Em that he said, KY Engineerin, Fuzzy Got Me Staring, or something like that. So he said that, and then when he said it, I was just doing so much on a lot of records, not necessarily him, but everybody records, and putting stuff together. Like, I knew Drake, so I was able to, like, call Drake and, hey, get on this song for Waka, stuff like that. And, I'm putting together these songs and putting together features and, some stuff he's doing, putting stuff, but I'm adding my sauce to it. So I was just like, man, this is my way to get my props.
Right.
For me kind of doing more than really just kind of engineering.
Yeah.
So I'm like, on the songs that I actually really put a lot of input on, I just wanted to put my tag on it. And when he heard it the first time, he was like, put that on all the songs. I'm like, I ain't gonna do that.
Not all the songs.
I'm not gonna put it on all the songs because this is your album. Like,
right.
I don't want it to sound like a mixtape.
Right.
And then, I don't know, it just took up a life of its own. And then it became one of those things where, like I said, I don't just place it on people's songs because I mix your songs, because I mixed a lot of songs and my tag's not there. But it's more so one of them things where, like I said, when people work with me, they like, hey, you gonna put your tag on there? And I'll be like, oh, all right, I'll put it on there. So every time you hear it, honestly, it's like somebody has asked me to put it on there. Yeah, and that's kind of how the tag, and I actually like it because I heard like a few other engineers, they got tags and stuff like that.
I've never I had never heard that before, but that's because obviously you hear producers put the tag on there. You know what I mean? So when you hear an engineer put their tag on it, it's like, when did this come about? You know?
And I think that was frowned upon too by other engineers at one point.
Sure.
But hey, now other engineers got tags, so it's cool.
That's kind of dope. You're a trendsetter in the engineer game.
I try to be, because I look at engineering kind of like how a rapper looks at things, like, and well, how fans would look at a rapper. Like, when you hear 2 Chainz, he's gonna be like, yeah, true,
right?
You know what I mean, stuff like that. So that's kind of his trademark stuff. So I like to do stuff that's kind of like, I think like a rapper when I'm engineering, and I like to do things that kind of, oh, KY did this,
right?
And even it came to a point where a lot of stuff that I was doing, of course, it kind of became part of, music, period, especially down south music. And people would do those things and they'd be like, did you mix that song? And I wouldn't even be to mix it. It just sounded like something that I did.
True.
So, like, I kind of created a sound.
Exactly.
For myself. And that's kind of how I look at my engineering, what I do. I try to, like, do little things that are, like, trademarks of, oh, KY did that.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I was asking earlier. Like, why would people come to you? Because they know they're going to get this particular sound.
Which is most time the club sound. Because a lot of people always bring me their singles or the club song, stuff like that. So that's why a lot of times, too, which is, I mean, it's a blessing, but a lot of people just always kind of they bring me their singles.
The hit.
Yeah, they bring me their hits.
Yeah.
And which for me, I mean, it definitely helps because when people ask, what have you done lately? Or, for some people that don't know,
right?
What have you done? Or even they might know I did stuff in the past, but what have you done recently? Like I said, with music changing and stuff like that. So what have you done recently? And when they see, oh, he's worked with Ray Sherman, he did Swang, he did Made in Tokyo, he did Jack Harlow, he did, just a whole bunch of new guys.
Yeah,
they just like, okay.
His project's dope.
Yeah, appreciate it. He's from Kentucky too.
Yeah, that's and I was
kind
of
a whole nother story. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about the music coming from Kentucky because I know all those guys. Actually, they had his whole crew, the homies or whatever.
Yeah.
I run a blog, and so they hit me up about Split the Bill a long time ago, and then another record before that.
Yeah.
And then to see Jack
Harlow. I mix
Harlow,
all their stuff too.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of I don't know if you want me to tell it now.
Yeah.
But,
go for it.
Basically, Jack Harlow, he's from Kentucky. He's from Louisville. I'm from Lexington. I've been down here, and I've also been trying to it's a lot of dope artists in Kentucky, honestly.
Really?
It's a lot of them, but they just don't have an outlet. So a lot of them maybe get frustrated and some quit. They just never kind of get heard because they just kind of, they stuck in Kentucky, honestly. So a friend of mine actually sent me his song, and sometimes, I listen, sometimes I don't, or whenever I get time. I really don't like sitting in the studio or whatever, somebody run up on me like, hey, listen to this, because I like listening to music on my own time. So he just sent me the link or whatever, and I sit in the studio one day in between mixes on YouTube, and I was like, let me check out this song. So I listened to it. I listened to one song, and then I listened to another song, and I was like, hey, get him down here. And they kind of start coming down to Atlanta, coming to my studio, working, stuff like that. And I just basically told them, like, hey, if you really, really, really want to make it, you might need to move. And he called me back maybe about a month later and was like, I'm ready to move. And so they moved down, started working at the studio. And then eventually that's when I ended up taking them over to Drama and Generation Now, which is, Uzi Lake with Drama and Cannon Lake. Shouts out to them. And, and then, of course, his producer, he's part of the homies, 2-4. So, he's part of the homies. And like I said, I do all their stuff, too. And they're super dope, too. And they on the rise, man. And, I just wanted to help out some guys from the city.
Exactly,
stuff like that.
That's dope to see, your hometown, doing something positive and being able to be heard.
Yeah, and it gives everybody else, it gives them motivation. To kind of, to want to okay, it can happen.
Absolutely.
It can happen because even with Bryson, it's kind of the same thing. He just had to take a whole nother route. But, even with that, it's you just got to kind of get out because he did, same thing. Now they see, okay, now we got Bryson, we got Jack, we got the homies, we got KY,
It's kind of just also, I'm sure that's how guys back in the day in Atlanta felt about getting their music out there, the Outkast, the Dungeon Family, being these weird guys from Atlanta. So it's cool to see how much music can really grow, especially with social media and being able to really push your stuff. Because just them hitting me up opened them up to a different audience, and or just me following their process and to see just 2 years what 2 years could do. So that's dope. Congrats to Jack Harlow and the homies. I love all of them.
Yeah, super cool guys. I love them guys.
Well, how long do you think it took you to reach visible success? In terms of numbers, years, months, time?
I guess if I want to say from the time I moved to Atlanta to all the way, I guess I want to say until maybe Lil Wayne, maybe. That was probably about a span of 6 years, maybe.
Because, I asked that because a lot of times in business, they say once you reach that 5-year mark, you'll really see some sort of profit, some sort of success. And for you, it was 6.
Yeah.
So just wanted to do my numbers, do my math to see how long I got.
Well, you was right. You was right. Because like I said, it was about 6. It was definitely about 6. And because I've probably been around, I'm 38 now. So
you look good.
Appreciate it. I got a few little grays and stuff.
But we age them well.
Appreciate it.
I'm just playing. But so let me ask this: just your advice to engineers and your advice to those who are trying to be the behind the scenes people who are helping not cultivate, but like helping make these records successful in terms of like, what would you tell an up and coming engineer? Advice to them working with artists, kind of getting their business, getting their clientele up. What would you tell them?
Like I said, the main thing is definitely just build that vibe with them. Treat them like they're a star, even if they're not a star. That's definitely like, and honestly, you got to think about them more than you thinking about yourself. Like, just be on point for them. You do what you need to do, because at the end of the day, what you're working on could end up being something big, and then that takes you across the world.
That's true.
And then you supporting your family. You taking care of your moms and your kids and your girlfriend and wife, whatever you got. You're doing that, and actually doing something you love. So I think that's probably the major number one thing. And study what you're doing. Like I said, now it's so easy. Like I can literally like sit somebody down, and within an hour or two, I can show you how to at least record. I ain't gonna say you're gonna be fast off top, but I can show you how to record. And then everything else, like I said, like I'm still learning. I still learn every day. I'm still on YouTube. I'm learning stuff and just seeing, and also too with me learning, like I said, not going to school, stuff like that. I know a lot of times I had to see if like the process that I was doing to get to a certain point
was the right way.
Was the right way. And when I go on some of these YouTube pages and I see, oh, okay, yeah, okay, these 3 people did it this way, I think I'm doing it the right way. And that makes me feel good about the whole, like I said, this whole self-learning thing and stuff like that. And then you're still gonna have your own way of doing stuff. Not saying it's a uniform way to do anything, because it's not. And it's a method to the madness.
Absolutely.
And everybody's gonna do it their own way.
Right.
Same way with an artist recording. It's a lot of hits out here, but they all didn't. None of them recorded it the same way.
Exactly. So let me ask you full circle. Those times when you were sleeping in your car, those times when you didn't have anything, moving back and forth from Kentucky to Atlanta, do you think the risk was greater than the reward, or do you think the risk has to be greater than the reward, or vice versa?
Oh yeah, definitely. I tell people that all the time. You gotta take a risk. Like, especially me or anybody that moves there. A lot of people, most people I meet that here are not from here.
Absolutely.
So they took a risk themselves, just coming in. Especially for me, like I'm coming down and I don't know nobody. It's a whole nother city. I'm from Kentucky. Like I'm trying to figure this thing out.
It's tough.
But you got to take that risk. Like I wouldn't change any of it. Like you got to take a risk in order to get it. And I think that separates a lot of people. Honestly, like a lot of people are so scared to chase their dreams. Like I talk to a lot of people and they just like, I want to do this, but it's going to be so hard to do this. And you're going to struggle going through it. You're definitely going to struggle going through it. But hey, like I said, me sleeping in my truck, I could have drove back home. And you think my mom was going to tell me, no, I can't come back home and live and all that stuff? Your mom always going to let you come back home.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I could ask her for money and stuff, everything. But I just like, let me figure this out. Like, let me figure it out. And I felt like, like I said, a lot of stuff to this day that kind of helps me just thinking about it. And that's my motivation too, because I know where I came from with that. And, if it would have just kind of been handed to me, I might not treat it the same.
Exactly.
So you definitely got to take a risk though. That's definitely number one. And I feel like that's not even just music, any field. Like you have to take a risk, even for kids in college. Like if you're going to medical school or something, that's a risk.
Big risk.
Yeah, that's a lot of money that you might have to owe Sally Mae and all, all that stuff.
True.
And a lot of time gone also. You don't be seeing doctors and lawyers and stuff like out, not when they like going through school.
Right.
You see them later on when they pull up in the bins at the club and in the section buying bottles.
Exactly. Like I guess the risk was definitely worth it.
Yeah,
It was
definitely,
worth it. That investment, that initial investment in yourself. Absolutely. And my last thing is the credits. So the credits that engineers do or don't get on a record. You talked about pretty much like putting songs together. That means that you produced the record. Did you get credit for it?
Not on all of them, no. Because back then I didn't understand.
How does that make you feel?
Bad. Because I'm like, somebody's running around making millions of dollars through the mail, and every time this song gets played, they're getting paid. And I'm not getting paid. And I put this song together. And I just feel like at some point, like how producers automatically get 50% and the artists get 50%, and of course it doesn't always just go that way, but that's normally the uniform or whatever, and then however they break it down later on the split sheets. But I just feel like it needs to be 3 pieces to that. And even if it's something as small as 2.5%, 5%, or, you know, give us a point on the song, or, you know, stuff like that, because we're here in the trenches with you. And I feel like, you know, and also, too, we ain't got no retirement plan.
Right.
You know? So at the end of the day, I feel like, hey, if we in here working on these records and they hits, it's enough money being made from these records to where y'all can give us something.
Some sort of residual income.
And and over time, like I said, I have built up to where now I do, but still not on everything. Because some artists, they only just want you to mix the record. I might not really do too much creative other than making it sound good.
Right,
you know?
Right.
So that's fine. But if I'm like really a part of that record or period, I need to, you know, and that goes for all of us. Like, not just me. I just feel like a whole bunch of us, because most engineers are not. And honestly, a lot of times it's as simple as that artist saying, hey, you know, here goes, I'm going to get my lawyer on the phone, you know what I mean, and we're going to get you signed up to where you can get something, you know what I mean?
Right.
And because it's not that hard, honestly. Like, the points are there, the pub is there, you know, like I said, it might be some situations sometimes. It's a sample, you know, like I said, you know, the artist doesn't always get 50%, the producer doesn't always get 50%. But like I said, y'all can split it up.
Y'all can make something happen.
Yeah, if, like I said, if you are getting the 50-50, if one producer made the beat and one artist rapped on it, made the hook and everything, no samples, 50-50, all right, cool. We're going to take 2.5% from each of our side, and now we gave him 5.
Right. So, I mean, is there any way that the engineer should protect themselves when it comes to, like, you know, if it does come down to credits, or if it comes down to just like working with artists? I know, like, with producers, I always ask that in terms of like handling your business and things like that, which makes sense because you know, you do have to deal with these split sheets. But for an engineer specifically, is there any way that you're protecting yourself throughout your journey?
Yeah, you better get a lawyer.
That's what I'm saying. Like, have you ever had to deal with anything where you like really needed your lawyer?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time. I'm on the phone with him weekly.
Really?
Yeah, definitely weekly. Like, and then like I said, I'm doing different stuff with different artists.
True.
I also got 3 producers. And
True.
Different stuff. So, you know, I'm definitely kind of always on the phone. And, you know, like I said, they're selling beats, and, you know, I'm doing
you just
stuff.
gotta make sure it's done right.
Yeah, just making sure stuff's done right, and, you know, all that stuff. So, you definitely get a lawyer. That's number one. And even if you're not getting points, I think you should still, like, get a lawyer, because you just never know. And at some point, that could happen, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And a lot of times that's going to, of course, like I said, that's you building a relationship with that artist. Because if they're a newer artist, like, even like newer artists that come to me, they're not going to necessarily just be like, KY, we're going to give you some points on this song. Because like I said, they really just want me to clean it up and make it sound better. But if I already had a relationship with that artist, like I said, they're going to want to maybe give you something. And when you do, guess what? Their lawyer going to send you some paperwork, and you're going to read it, and you're going to be like, I don't understand this.
Exactly.
You know, so, you know, what you're not understanding, I think you need to understand it. And it's a lot of books and different stuff. Like, definitely learn about the game like the same way anything else. And then, like I said, also us being engineers, at some point you do turn into a businessman. Like, when I first started, I didn't look at it like, oh, I'm going to manage artists and I'm going to run a studio and I'm going to do this. I didn't think about none of that stuff then. That all stuff that kind of happened over time, and I noticed I was naturally doing it anyway. So now let me really, like, step up and really, you know what I mean, like, you know, and it takes time. Like, it takes time. Like, I tell them, like, you start recording engineering, then you go to mixing, then you go to mastering. You don't skip these steps.
Right.
You know, I mean, and some people try, because I hear some people like, oh, I master, but you don't even really mix that good. Like, how do you master? Like, I don't be getting it. Like, you know, and then some people, you know, they want to send the stuff off to the little online mastering spots and say they mastered it and charging people for it. Like,
really?
Yeah.
That's a finesse.
Super finesse.
Dude.
I wouldn't do it because I actually want to talk to somebody.
That's messed up.
Yeah, I need to talk to my mastering engineer.
Yeah.
I can't talk to this computer.
That's weird.
Yeah.
And also, like, is it really, you know, does that work? Like, does it sound good? When it goes
Some of the stuff I've heard, it don't sound that bad. It don't sound that bad.
I never
Honestly,
even knew that
like,
existed.
I think if you, like I said, if you're an artist on the come up or something, like, and you can't afford maybe $150, $200, $300 for some guys to pay to master one song, you know, then hey, you run it through there, pay your $10, and you know, and at least it's gonna, you know, at least it's decent though. It's not horrible, but at the end of the day, that's still like one of them things where it's like we need this human, you know,
human interaction, man. We're getting a little far.
Yeah,
with
it's like, you know, you taking mastering engineers out the game. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah. So let me ask you the last thing. What are we working on right now? What's to come?
Well, like I said, I just finished up Jack Carlo. I got an artist named Joe Green. He's super dope. He's here from Atlanta, so I just finished up his stuff working on him and an artist named Talia. She's an R&B artist.
Nice.
So I'm working with them, and then of course, 2 Chainz working on his new album, and I'm actually mixing Made in Tokyo's album, and I'm actually working on one more album, but I can't say nothing yet. So
you can tell me afterwards.
I'll tell you after. Okay, give you the scoop. I'm gonna give you the scoop afterwards.
Dope. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with everything at Bass Recording Studios. Where can they find you on social media, as well as your studio, if they want to come and book some time?
Well, my social media, Twitter and Instagram, is at KYFINIS 859. Once again, KYFINIS 859. As far as the studio goes, it's kind of more of like a private situation.
Okay.
So I really don't have like a number up for it or email, stuff like that. But I run it like that on purpose. Like I book sessions, but the sessions that I book either come from people I already know or, my producers are working with people, or my other engineers, they got their own people. I let, like, say Vern wanted to come over and work. Like, if he had his own clients and he wanted to come and work, then...
This is a space to utilize. That's dope.
Right. So I just kind of build it like that, and that's how I build the engineers. Because most engineers that come in, they already have their own people.
Got you. Their own clientele.
Yeah, exactly.
Dope.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Good to know. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. And as always, you guys can keep in touch with the I Do Music podcast at IDM Podcast on social media, as well as myself at Sammy Approved on all social media platforms. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
KY, run me back.
2 times.
2 times.
Sonically superior.